RCDzarak here today with Uncle Stu. How's it going, Stu? Been a while.
No, I love that, Gus. It's going great. Zarak. It's great to see you. My nephew, I like that because that's what Sigafoos called me, Uncle Stu, even though he was older than I am.
Yeah, it's funny because whenever I envisioned starting the podcast, you were one of the main people that was like, I'm definitely going to get them on. But I've never invited you on because I wanted it to be live. I envisioned it like, okay, I'm going to see him at Carrier anyway, and we'll just, sit on the beach and something and do a video. And I hope we do that at some point. The online stuff's good, but you don't get the same. It's not as organic as when you're actually there with the person. But with the current affairs, it's going to be a while, I think, before I'm with you live. So for now, we're going to make do with doing a Zoom call. But I'm glad to have you on here anyway.
Happy to be here, and I know exactly what you mean. I think it's far better than nothing, but not even close to being in person. But yeah, we'll get there.
I liked your post yesterday about the April Fools and some of the frustrations that I think we're all kind of going through and facing the harsh reality of what's happening out there. But you have some stories about our old friend Sigafoos that you wanted to share. I have no idea what he's going to say either, but I'm happy to hear any insight that Stu has that's going to give us a kick up the ass, I'm sure.
All right. Well, I've been thinking about him a lot this past year and what he would be doing and saying, and I'm sure he'd be frustrated too, as he was frustrated pretty much through the last 40 years of his career in life. But that's one of the things I really wanted to share, and I'll get to before I forget it. I mean, even though he never really thought the profession had stepped up to the level that he would want, he kept at it. He showed up, he spoke, he shared his heart, he shared his truth, sometimes in places that were not necessarily friendly to his way of looking at things. That's why I first heard him. He spoke at Parker, where, there were a lot of principled people or vitalistic people at Parker, but there was a lot of other people, a lot of mixers, as they were called at the time, that was one of the nice things about Parker, actually, that everybody was welcome and everybody got under one tent and shared and found common ground. But still, a lot of people would hear Sigafoos and be very uncomfortable. I, for one of them, the first time I heard Sig speak was 1989 at Parker, and I walked out of the room along with a bunch of other people because, he said something like that innate intelligence can heal any disease known to man. And I'm like, hell with that, I'm out of here. I think mostly I was angry because he made some remark about using physical therapy to justify our fees and stuff. And I had just bought this beautiful combination ultrasound and high voltage galvanic unit that I actually thought was, the secret of life and the secret of healing. And he, hearing that was not what I had bargained for. Anyway, for whatever reason, I stormed out with a bunch of other people. But, interestingly, a year later, even though I'm sure he didn't really change his tune, I heard it. I had obviously gone through some change in that year where, and then I just couldn't get enough of him, and I followed him around, and I went to everything he did, and I started going to the gathering, and even though it took him about 4 years to know my name, he called me Tahoe. Anyway, I draw so much inspiration from the fact that he kept on keeping on. And I have to say even more so because at first, I idolized him. I worshiped him. I thought he was, chiropractic God. Then I got to know him really well. And he was a person, man. He was human. He had his issues. He had the same fears and stuff as you and I. He had overcome them probably a lot more than some of us have. But he could be grumpy. He could be negative.
Yeah.
He could be ornery. So again, seeing that he wasn't God and yet still showing up and still sharing the good news and still rolling on, that just made me love and respect him even more, if anything. So
that's something I've noticed from doing these interviews, or not even on the interviews, just having like an intimate conversation with someone in a bar that is the daughter of a legend, the son of a legend, raised by a legend, or just went to school with some of these people that we look at like, oh wow, oh. And that's been like a big breakdown for me, is you just realize that these guys, yes, they were cool and they did some cool stuff, but they were human and they were flawed. You know, I'm very close with the Sigafus family, and he wasn't perfect. He was a great chiropractor, wasn't really a great dad. And I say that, you know, I'm not saying anything that Kerry wouldn't tell you himself. Gonstead was just completely overworked and just threw himself into it with absolute insanity. There was no like work-life balance. And I could list 10 to 15 more, and you realize that these guys that we perceive as our heroes, they are only human, man. You know what I mean? They're normal people with problems just like us.
And yes, so therefore we can do what they did because we're human too. And hopefully we can learn from some of the things that they may have regretted.
Yeah. And I often think, like, listening to the Sigafus weekly calls, which you've said to me before, you've heard them, but you were there live. And I do think to myself a lot, I'm like, what would he say? I'd love to just have a 10-minute conversation with him, just be like, what do we do here, man? Like, what's going on? Where's this profession going?
Well, I heard him ask those questions many times, so he probably would still be doing that. I would like to think he would be reminding us that what was true a year and a half ago is still true, including many of our declarations of staying strong no matter what, and being willing to go to prison for chiropractic and all this kind of stuff. That was all, maybe nice talk. He would be reminding us that this is the time to show what we've learned. This is what we've prepared for. This is what this is the place we have worked so hard to hold in the world. And yes, it's far from easy, but I think he'd also be reminding us that nothing really should or could stop us from at least being a beacon of light and hope in our sphere of influence, even if we're not ready to tackle the entire world and the entire problem and the entire problems with our profession, but just as he did, he reached one person at a time and changed the direction of their life one at a time. And it was cool to hang out with him because people would constantly come up to him in the hallway and tell him these things. I heard you speak 15 years ago, and blah 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 blah. It was beautiful to hear, and I think it was beautiful for him to hear, because that's one of the challenges. We don't know. We never know how far-reaching something we say or do will affect the lives of millions. I know his words and his courage and his dedication and persistence to keep showing up, even though he was never happy with with where the profession was, is why millions of people were impacted for the better. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm here holding the space in chiropractic that I'm holding. There's no doubt about it. So we can all be hopeful for that these people that we adjust, or these people that we share the message with, they may not seem to get it, and they may be making choices right now that we're not thrilled about, but on some level, they have been changed, and you never know which of those people is going to spark an entire new direction for the world. So let's keep on keeping on. That's the most important inspiration I gained from visualizing being with him right now.
Yeah. And I think from what I gather listening to him, he wasn't really afraid of confrontation. He had his way of being, and there wasn't really much negotiation with it. Whereas I feel like at the moment, we as a collective, we're being very agreeable. We're just like, oh yeah, like I need to wear the mask. All right, I guess I'll wear the mask. And I'm kind of like, really? Like we said all that stuff for I first got into this, first started looking at chiropractic on the internet and reading books about chiropractic and shadowing chiropractors 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. I was 19, and I feel like I've heard all this stuff for 10 years, and now it's time. I'm like, all right, now we're gonna see what we've been talking about. And I'm kind of looking around me like, really, guys? We're just gonna go
Well, it's certainly not something that I haven't thought about too, but I will remind you, as I remind myself, that I talk to a lot of chiropractors, and they, in their offices, yeah, a lot of them are not really towing the line. A lot of them, and I have gotten so much hope and inspiration from listening to them and telling me about their patients that aren't necessarily buying into it and are being bold in their own ways. And so the deal is, unfortunately, and this is actually something that Sisyphus used to remind me, the most fired up chiropractors, maybe the most principled chiropractors, the strongest chiropractors, you're never going to hear about, because they're just too busy turning on life in their offices and changing people's minds and life and dealing with people's fears and holding an incredible high watch for people's fears and, inspiring people and leading people. So, they're not necessarily the ones we're going to read about on Facebook, or they're not necessarily into politics, but there are many chiropractors holding a very strong line. So maybe you need to get out a little more often. I'm kidding there, because I don't get out very often either. But unfortunately, I speak to a lot of chiropractors all the time, and, kind of wishing that I was in practice still to see where I would be in this whole deal. And I'd like to think I'd be just as inspiring as they are. But they also tell me stories like, somebody who has been locked down for 8 months, and then they finally leave their house, and the first place they go is to the chiropractor. Or they'll say something like, I know I'm going to get the virus, so I thought it would be really important to get adjusted so I could stay as strong as possible. I mean, that, to me, that would be a lot of validation and a lot of hope to hear that kind of thing. And even though I hear it secondhand, it's made a huge difference for me. So hang in there, because, in a lot of ways, we've never quite measured up to what we could be.
Yeah.
In many ways, we've underachieved. In many ways, we've been too busy fighting among ourselves to really, hold a stronger place in the world. The same problems we've had since, there were 2 chiropractors in the world. So on some level, it's not maybe 100% reasonable to expect us to burst out of all that right now, when it's maybe harder than ever. But hold that hope. There's still Sisyphuses out there, and there's fledgling Sisyphuses like you. And there's older guys who were, infected by Sisyphus greatly, like me. So there's hope, and we never know how far reaching. I mean, it's just like adjusting people. We don't know what's going to happen. I've been blessed, because the lady who is seeing most of the people who are in my practice, because I haven't practiced now for 10 years, she still sees a lot of those people, and she still, every day that I see her, she tells me something somebody said about me, or about chiropractic, or about my talk, about my health talk from 12 years ago or 15 years ago, that made a huge difference in their life. And they never told me any of these things. And so if I wasn't in this position to have her hearing them and sharing them with me, I never would have heard them. And again, I get inspiration from Sisyphus, because I'm sure, even though people stopped him in the hallway all the time, he didn't hear 99% of the things that he could have heard, or that he, the difference he made.
Yeah, it's true. And there's almost there's 2 ways you can look at it. So you can go down one route where it's like you almost have to be quite aggressive, and you're going to be in a lot of these confrontations, and you're like, look, I'm not playing this game. The mask doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. I'm not wearing that thing to the office. I know I'm going to lose some patients, but that's okay, because I will attract other people that want that exact message. But I understand, and I can empathize with the other side, where it's like, look, man, I don't have any dependables, so I know that my opinion's biased. I don't have kids. I'm not even married. So it's a much different situation for me. Whereas I understand it, if you've got staff and you've got kids, and you've got a mortgage, you're like, hey man, I just need to keep my doors open. If you need me to put the mask on, then I'm going to jump through the hoop. Like, I'm going to play the game. And I'm trying to figure out where on that spectrum, where do I lie? And I try and empathize with other people instead of like just attacking them. But yeah, it's tough.
There's no doubt it's tough. And you know, maybe it'd be good to remember that, yes, there are two ways to go, but I'm glad you said spectrum, because I think we all need to find the balance there. And I think we can all, you know, not all of us are sigafoos, not all of us crave confrontation, not all of us don't give a, you know, what about what anybody thinks. You know, but again, he didn't start there. Can I share a story?
Yeah.
I heard this from Patsy, his wife. So the first time, and you've probably all heard, all you Sig Talk listeners, about his open houses and the fried chicken and having hundreds and hundreds of people show up and he just x-rayed them all and started his practice with, you know, hundreds of people a day. But, you know, when he put the ad in the paper, he was so freaked out about it, according to his wife, that he wouldn't go to the post office for the next 2 weeks for fear of being seen in his community. But so what he had decided to do, and what he shares, and I'm sure you've heard, is to act as if, and he was walking by faith, not by sight, as he often recommended us to do. He started doing it and talking about it and putting action into it before he really owned it, or before he was comfortable about doing it. And that took a lot of courage. Fortunately, he had Patsy to go to the post office for him for those couple of weeks. But, you know, so it was an evolution for him too, to stand up as strongly as he did. So let's start in our own sphere of influence. You know, let's start right where we are. Let's learn how to deal with those things within ourselves. That was obviously one of the big things he was into, was overcoming our own fears so we could serve in that way. And they all dovetail together and they all support each other. So let's just start somewhere on that spectrum and maybe make it a goal to move a little bit on that spectrum every day. You know, we don't have to worry about how we're going to get here because we won't take a single step if we're too focused on how we're going to get from here to there. It's kind of too overwhelming, right? And God, I would have to do this, and I'd have to give up this, and I'd have to take responsibility for this, and I may get in trouble, or people might not like me, and all this kind of stuff. So maybe
what if I get in trouble seems to be a big theme at the moment.
Yeah,
we want permission to do things instead of just doing it. I've known, and not just chiropractors, everybody. Oh, can I fly to that country? I'm like, well, who are you waiting to tell you that you can?
Yeah, the whole world has headed more in that direction over the last few decades. So it's an especially challenging time for us. And I think it's really important that we hold a little gentleness for ourselves and respect for other people and their position, because because it doesn't help really to be judging other people. It doesn't help us be how we want to be. If it did, then judge away, but to me, it just makes us less empowered. It just makes us more frustrated. It just makes us more overwhelmed. And those are not good places to do anything from. It's not a good place to start moving on that spectrum from.
Yeah.
It's
opinion checking. But I didn't know that story about that he was, I knew about the chicken thing, but I never would have thought that he'd be nervous about putting an ad out. It's like, I remember doing a podcast with Arnold Bernier, who was one of the first like live ones that I did. And just towards the end of the episode, he's like, sometimes people would ask me for an adjustment and I would get nervous and I would get in my head. And I asked him why. And he's like, because I know that they want the Arno adjustment and they want like this life-changing thing. And he's like, but now I have the pressure on me and I'm just a guy. And sometimes I would get in my head and maybe I would do a shitty adjustment. And I'm like, wow, because we put Arno on the same pedestal as we put like Sigafus and all these guys, and you kind of think that they're indestructible, but they have demons that they have to overcome as well. Sigafus was nervous about putting an advert in the paper.
He was young. he was young then, but yes, that's cool. That's cool, dude. I mean, you just remind me that probably the only person I can really remember being nervous about adjusting was Sigafus, because for one thing, he had a shitty neck, especially by the time he was a little older. And anyway, yes, I mean, my vulnerabilities are probably similar to his. I'm historically a people pleaser, historically hating confrontation, hating disagreement. But I've worked long and hard on that, and with his help, probably the most common phrase I believe I would ever hear from him was, "Doesn't make any difference." That's what he'd say that all the time. Doesn't make any difference. And he'd be talking about whether people liked you or your attachments to stuff. Doesn't make any difference. It really helped me focus on what was important. It was so important to me to own a principle myself and to share it with as many people as possible that, with his help, I was able to overcome whether they liked it or not. And, after a while, maybe I got more like him. The more resistance I ran into, the more fired up I got, the more dedicated I got, the more I liked it, even because, he would tell us, join the rejection club. I don't know if that's come through on any of the tapes. Make it your goal to be rejected 100 times a day. He had a lot of respect for Jehovah's Witnesses because of that they would be willing to come to your door, even, pretty much knowing they'd be rejected in one way or the other, whether it was politely or not. And so, and the rationale was, if you're getting rejected 100 times a day, how many times do you think you'll be accepted? And you have to be willing to deal with that fear of rejection, because.
And you then, once you become familiar with rejection, you kind of learn not to fear it.
Yeah, because one thing you learn is it's people, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. And maybe this is the most important thing I have to say here today, and this comes from the wisdom of being around for a while. People are going to do what they're going to do. People are going to make choices based on sometimes, goodness knows what. And I know that sometimes I make choices that are kind of mysterious, and I'm not exactly sure where they came from. So rejection became less about me, and it became just about their choice. And, and a lot of people who rejected me at first came back. A lot of those people who rejected the principle came back, and then they were trying to teach me the principle. Like, oh, Stu, I learned this great thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, I told you this 2 years ago, but, apparently you weren't ready. So, and I know that I wasn't ready. Again, the first time I heard the same words. I imagine we've all experienced that. You read a book and you either really like it, and 5 years later you're wondering why you liked it because it doesn't resonate anymore, or vice versa. It's like the word didn't change.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the biggest things he helped me with, my vulnerabilities about confrontation.
You can have that kind of need for approval. I'm thinking about that now because I'm about to graduate. I'll graduate in a couple of months. So I mean, for the likes of the people in my cohort, if you're going out and maybe you're being an associate, or maybe you're just going and starting your own thing, a lot of these thoughts come into your head. It's like, oh, are people going to accept this? Are people going to like it? Is my health talk good enough? Is my adjusting good enough? Do I want to be agreeable and kind of play the game that the mainstream media is putting out? And everybody's fearful. Everyone's got this distrust. People don't really want a maskless person to open the door and give them a hug. At least not all of them. So if you were to go back into practice now and it's day one and you have to get an associateship or you have to open your doors, what would be going through your head, knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now?
Yeah. So you're in my position, which
I'd be asking.
We've got the same haircut and the same going on, so it's like it's like a Back to the Future spinoff.
I'd be asking different questions. Then, will people accept me, etc., and are they gonna be okay with me hugging them without a mask? I would be, and I learned this from Sigafus and also Dick Santo, who co-taught with him at the gathering for many years, that people are already there. You know, they're choked up with fear right now, and it's even harder to see, but they are there. I think it's really good to go in with an expectation, or at least an expectancy, that as long as I don't talk too much and talk them out of it, everybody's going to want chiropractic care, because it's the most beautiful, simple thing, the most life-changing thing, the most life-saving thing there is. I think when we go into it with, oh my God, are they going to accept me? We're already weakened in our position. We go in, and if they say no, again, if I'm coming from that position, it's like, you know, next. If the hotel's on fire and I knock on a door and I say, you know, the hotel's on fire, you better get moving, and they say, I don't believe in fire, I'm going to say, well, you know, get out your marshmallows, and I'm going to head on to the next door, right? I'm not going to say, poor me, they rejected me. Their choice. So I would go in again. I go in with the full knowing that not everybody's going to accept it, but a lot of times that's not because they don't get it. It's not because I didn't deliver it in the best possible way. I mean, it could be because of those things, and those things are always worth looking at, but it could be something like, oh my God, you know, no matter what this person says, even before they started talking, I wasn't going to do it because my sister-in-law's hairdresser's veterinarian's second cousin had a bad experience with chiropractic, and that's it. I had people leave me for all kinds of reasons when I sometimes was able to find out that had absolutely nothing to do with all the things I thought. You know, I sucked, or I didn't do something, or I forgot to say something, or I had a lady I found out left after a few weeks of really being excited in the practice, because after 2 weeks she got her period. And this was a little alarming to her because she had had a hysterectomy about 11 years prior. So growing a new uterus was not in her, was not one of her intentions.
Right.
It was a little more than she bargained for. So again, I wonder how many times people leave because they get too much. And you know what I mean? We don't know. We don't know. So instead of worrying about people not accepting us, let's just assume they will and come from that place. And then it becomes about sharing, like sharing good news with people rather than convincing them or talking them into it, or telling them that their belief system that they've held their entire life is completely wrong. And, you know, just listen to me and you'll be all right. This is, you know, no wonder people reject us.
You know, just as you said that, I realized something, the way you're saying about sharing something instead of convincing them of something. I shared a thing yesterday. It came up on Facebook Memories, and it was me in first year, and I won Talk the Tech. You know, Talk the Tech, yeah. I won it in the first year, but the video, I got a new phone and the video has disappeared. I'm sure I'd sent it to some people back in 2016, but as far as I was concerned, it was disappeared. But I shared this thing, and I've often thought for the last 2 years, I was like, I wish I could get that video, you know, I wanted to see. And I put this on Facebook, I just shared it, and I was like, I'd love to get that back if anyone has it. And Jonathan Clark, shout out to Jonathan, he messaged me and he's like, yo, I have the video, you sent it to me in 2016. I'm like, send me it back. So he sends me the video and I watch it. And it's weird because I almost don't recognize the guy because whenever I watch it, there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of heart to it, but there's also I need to convince everybody in this room about chiropractic. There's a very subtle neediness to the video. And I'm like, I watch it and I'm proud and I'm like, okay, I did well, I won the thing. But I'm like, I'm much happier with the way I present now, because now when I do like a mandatory talk. So before someone starts with me in student clinic, I just like to go to a cafe or I come here with them and I tell them about chiropractic and what I do and what I don't do. and now it's very much a sharing. And I'm not, there's a used car salesman vibe to the first year, Zarak. Whereas now it's just like, here's what I do, here's what I don't do. I have some space if you want to start, and this is it. And I think that's been the shift that's took part in me in the last 5 years.
That's awesome. So who needed to be convinced?
Me.
Yeah. Well, there's value. There's value in the convincing stage, because hopefully we're convincing ourselves. I mean, when I advise people to do a mandatory talk or a talk, Sigafus was obviously big on that, doing a mandatory talk at some point in the early part of care, if not before. I say probably the main reason why that's a good idea is for you, the chiropractor, to have to put it in words, to hear it all the time. Yeah, we're the ones who need to get it. And
yeah,
there's an expression in chiropractic that I probably dislike the most. It's that people don't get it, or if they only got it. If they got what we got, then they do what we do. Different variations of this. I think that's all. I can just imagine like D.D. Palmer, because I don't know if everybody knows this, but it took supposedly 3 adjustments for Harvey Lillard's hearing to go away. But after 2, I bet D.D. went home to his wife and started saying, I don't think Harvey gets it. If Harvey only got it, his hearing would be restored and chiropractic would be great. This is an excuse, man. It's an excuse we've used for 125 years, and it's not even remotely true. We're the ones who need to get it. And in my experience, and I went through an incredible evolution, just like Sigafus. Sigafus walked out the first time he heard the principle of chiropractic from Sid Williams. And then Williams became his, main mentor, and the same thing happened to me. And Sigafus went to National College of Chiropractic, which is thus, since then taken chiropractic out of the name, honestly. And LACC, where I went, did the same thing. So we both got no chiropractic or chiropractic philosophy anyway, in our educational system and in our early years of practice. And we did that. So I went through every phase of evolution a chiropractor could, and people stayed with me. I mean, there were people in my practice my last day when they were getting an adjustment that took a minute, who were in my practice, getting heated and cooled and stretched and baked and for 25 minutes. And God knows what I was doing for 25 minutes. I wish I had videos of me in those days, but essentially just chasing every symptom around the room until I felt like I had snuffed out enough of them. I don't know, but why would those people stay with me through these tremendous changes? They did, and they got it because I did. When I was clear and when I was certain. Not everybody stayed with me, of course, but some did. So, yeah, that's the main thing. We have to own it. We have to own it.
And
to a point that probably
let's say you want to go to the office and you're like, I'm not gonna wear a mask, like I'm gonna keep my doors open even if there's a lockdown. That mentality is very, very polarizing, especially at this present moment. And you have to realize that when you are polarizing in anything, that you will have rejections. Not everybody is going to like that. And just with my kind of personality, I'm at peace with that. I'm like, not everyone's going to like me. It's fine. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, leave me alone. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has that luxury, and a lot of people just want to be agreeable. And I try and empathize with those and be like, not everybody wants to have all the confrontations of the day, and they just want to go to work. And I had the conversation the other day with an intern. Like some people, you have to realize not everybody loves chiropractic just as much as you do. Like for people like us, we just eat, sleep, breathe chiropractic. We're insane about it. It's all we want to talk about. We just want to go to seminars. We just want to hang out with other chiropractors, work on our technique, get better and better every day. For some people, their hobby is fishing, and they just want to go to their office and adjust a few people and pick up their envelope, and that's it. And that's cool. They're not bad people, but you just have to accept that not everybody's as emotionally invested in this as we are.
And not everybody is, I'm sure there's people there's chiropractors who wish they were standing a little stronger, or or I'm constantly hearing this. I should be doing more. I should be doing more. Well, I'm not crazy about should, because that's also not a good place to do anything from. We will just keep shoulding on ourselves probably forever if we're into shoulding. But I do have empathy for people, and I agree. It doesn't help a lot to just be judging other people. Let's just get strong ourselves. Let's do what we need to do to be as strong as we can be, and then again, take a step every day towards being stronger. And a lot of people might not get to the point where they're going to say, I'm not wearing a mask no matter what, and if you don't like it, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And some of those people are just sort of treading water, and as you said before we started recording, things might get tougher. We might be asked to take even a stronger stand at a harder time, and maybe some of these people are just sort of treading water until they get to that point. I don't know. Again, I will go back to let's focus on ourselves and on our sphere of influence, and hopefully it'll spread from there. That's always been my hope. And again, I see signs that truth still exists. I see signs that principle still exists, is still being talked about, is still being expressed, is still a value that people find important. Let's at least keep it alive, so when the world comes back around to looking for us, we are still there. Wouldn't that be the ultimate irony? Is like they're finally ready and looking for us, and we've given up because it doesn't seem like there's enough of us, so whatever.
That's the thing, like they are out, they're out there, they're hard to find, but they are there. And I think that's what a lot of people, now I realize that I'm a student. There's only so much that I can say because I haven't been out in practice. So I haven't had the same trials and tribulations as everyone else. But what I would say in my very limited experience is that when you find those people, those patients that want exactly what it is that we're selling. I went the other day for a massage, just because I wanted, I want some people to refer patients to. So I have a physiotherapist that I've tried out a few times. I just wanted a massage therapist, so that if I'm with a client that I'm like, hey, maybe a massage would do you good, go to this person I've been on. So I go for this massage, and she's like, yeah, my friend went to a chiropractor that's very good. And I was going to go there, but that chiropractor wears a mask. And she's like, why the hell would I go to a chiropractor that's wearing a mask? You're going to promote a holistic way of life and wear the mask. I'm not going to go to him. And
that's
like,
awesome.
There's your ideal client. That's someone, and this was a masseuse, and she's like, I'm not going to wear a mask while I'm here. And I says, you're not worried about losing clients? And she said one day a client came and made a big scene and left without having a massage. She's like, that client left me a 0-star review on Yelp or whatever it was. She said, Zarak, it's my favorite review. She says, do you know why? And I was confused. I was like, why? And she's like, because then if other, maskers read that, she's like, I don't have to interact with those people because they just won't come to me. But the people that are attracted to that, they're going to flock. And I'm like, this girl gets like vitalistic chiropractic more than some of the vitalistic chiropractors I know.
Yeah.
They are right there.
I think you need to ask Mark Hudson if she can speak at Chiro Europe next time. She'd be very inspiring. And again, I know a lot of chiropractors who don't mask unless somebody specifically insists that they do, kind of thing. And just because, there's so many things at play here. We don't want to exclude people either. Maskers deserve chiropractic care too.
Yeah,
so, what this also has all taught me, that this is also an opportunity for us all to learn how to share. Because again, when you start convincing or start selling, you're already creating resistance or polarization or a lot of the stuff we don't want so much in the world. So learning to share it in a way where we could be heard, even though people are afraid, is a challenge. Even, to share it in a way that people will hear us, even though they don't seem to want to hear us. I believe this is possible. I believe it's possible to share chiropractic in a very open, universal way. I had I did what you do. I did the mandatory talk before care. And one particular time I had two ladies among other people at a talk. I was find out that one of them was a very fundamentalist traditional Christian woman, and the other one was the leader of a Wiccan society here, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's pagan. It's as far from traditional Christianity as I believe you can get. And so when they came in for their first visit, and the first question in the consultation always was, what did you get out of the talk? Or is there one thing you know that really sparked or whatever? And both of these ladies said exactly the same words. That was exactly what I believe. And I, at that day, I realized that I had arrived at some level that I had really sought, that when we stick to chiropractic and share it and share the good news, again, in maybe a slightly more loving or open way, a universal way, it's exactly what people believe. It's exactly, and the best thing I would hear after my talk is, yeah, duh. You know, I've always believed that. I wouldn't have been able to say it that way. I appreciate you, sharing some of that information, so I feel stronger about my position and stuff. But it wasn't like news to them at all. And over the years, it was even more and more like that. And that's not a mystery, because you look at the bestseller list, and 5 out of 10 on the nonfiction side anyway. It's always stuff that's at least very similar to chiropractic, whether it's Deepak Chopra or Eckhart Tolle or whoever it is. It's like the principle of chiropractic without the practice, without the thing, the physical thing that can actually help people experience those principles in their life. We have what nobody else has. So let's at least be strong enough to tell people that. And again, part of the difficulty for me through this period is, here I have this beautiful thing that I really feel would reduce your fear level, would make you feel safer in the world, would do wonders for you and your family, and you're hiding behind a mask. So I get the frustration, and yet again, I know that below the mask and below the fear, a lot of people, especially as this continues, are going to be looking back at us, because again, we have that way of staying safe in the world, quote unquote. I mean, you can never really be safe in the world.
As much as I hate that expression, I hate it when people tell me to stay safe. Stay safe always sounds like a threat. Like I know that when the people say it, that they mean well. They're not bad people. I'm not saying that. But when someone's like, "All right, Zarak, stay safe," for me, it always sounds like, "Oh, Stu, I hope you stay safe. I hope nothing happens to you. It would be a shame if you were to fall down the stairs." Like it always sounds like a threat to take me out.
Well, they've certainly provided a lot of moral high ground and stuff for people, and yeah, let's keep each other safe, and we're all in this together. It's sort of weird to me, because together to me doesn't mean 6 feet apart. Together doesn't mean being afraid of each other and hating each other for our choices. None of that stuff really is my definition of being together. But in the meantime, again, a lot of people at some point are going to be looking for a way to, I don't know what else to say. It's so ingrained, to be safer in the world, to feeling better about my place in the world, to be able to answer the question that Einstein said was the most important question we as a species needed to ask ourselves: is the universe a friendly place? And chiropractic, more than any other profession or idea that I know, advocates that yes, it couldn't possibly be a friendlier place, because we're one with it all, and we have an intelligence that's one with the intelligence that created and harmonizes it all. I mean, that doesn't keep you safe. You're going to die anyway, and you could hurt your back. Just ask Zarak. Shit could happen.
Yeah.
But yet, do we want to go through life like dreading everything and fearing everything and trying to kill everything that might get us first? This is obviously not chiropractic philosophy. And I think people will come around to that. A lot of people will be looking for that. How do I, because there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there that's, they think they're safer because of the vaccine. So that'll work until the next virus comes around. It's
Well, it only protects you for 6 months. So after 6 months, you're not safe anymore.
yeah, sorry, I don't want to start getting judgmental here, but you're getting my idea. Yeah, the things we've been told will keep us safe are, not.
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine people at some point saying, well, none of that did it.
The good thing in that is you kind of have like the silent majority. So I was thinking about this the other day. If I was to go out onto that street and speak to everybody that I see, probably 70% of the people are going to be like, look, I don't want to get the mask and I don't want the experimental vaccine, but it kind of seems like I have to and everybody else is doing it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But I don't want to. Like, I kind of think that all of this is bullshit, but I'm just going to go along with it because I don't want to get into trouble. And those people, that silent majority, those are the perfect people that after this, if we've been saying, hey guys, this is what we've been saying all along, this is chiropractic philosophy, we've been talking about this for 120 years, they're the people that need to hear that. But in order for that to happen, we need to be the ones educating it, and we need to be a bit more abrasive, and we need to be like, yo, I'm not playing this game because I know that this is not how it works. And sadly, I don't think, from what I've seen anyway, I don't think we're doing that. We're not setting ourselves up to be in that position.
It doesn't seem that way to me, but I'm going to hold that it's happening because it helps me get up in the morning and it helps me continue to do what I'm doing. And again, I see signs. I do see signs that is happening. I'm not sure if vitalistic chiropractic is ever going to be mainstream. However, I think it's an incredible opportunity for us to be more mainstream when people wake up a little more from their trance. All those people who might, suddenly realize, holy crap, I can't believe I did that for a year. And if I look back through history and I see these, mega viruses come around every 9 or 10 years, am I really willing to do this, to give up my life for 2 years every time this happens? I got to believe people are a little more sane than that. And I got to believe that chiropractors are a little more powerful than they, but they're people and they're choked up in the same fears and they're exposed to the same media and stuff. So let's have empathy for them while we, again, we do what we can do in our sphere of influence. And you're in a position to, have an impact on a lot of chiropractors hearing that. Because again, a lot of them are waiting for permission or waiting for, I don't know exactly what, but seem to be waiting for something that you and I might spark them, just like Sigapoo sparked me.
Yeah.
Obviously there was something within me. He didn't create it. Just like we don't create healing in the people we adjust. That's already there. But the clearer we are, the stronger we are, the energy and the space we create around that for people allows them, gives them permission to step into their bigness and their wholeness. And I still think we can do that for people in our own profession.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the crossroads I'm at, because I'm still young. I haven't hit 30 yet. Do I just go into the office and just crack some bones and pick up my...
I'm not too worried about you.
Or do you step into that role and be like, look, these guys need...
All right, step a little more into that role every day.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't be sharing information, and it could just be chiropractic information. It doesn't have to be making anybody wrong. That's been one of our issues too. I think we've attempted to offer the gifts of chiropractic mostly by making medicine and everything else wrong. I don't think we have to do that. Medicine doesn't need our help making them wrong.
The first
that sort of came out different than I intended, but we can just advocate what the good news about chiropractic, and I think that would make a big difference. I mean, it's not comfortable for somebody to come into your office and hear that everything they believed up to this point in time was wrong. Even though maybe it is, It's just not the approach to help people, especially when they're in a state of fear. So again, let's take on the challenge of presenting it in a different way, sharing, rather than selling and convincing, and certainly rather than changing people's belief system. I mean, we hope that happens. We hope they adopt a more whole belief system, a belief system that we believe is more the state of truth in the world. But, you know, we're not going to do that by telling them they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I also have to say, if we need a little more compassion for other chiropractors, just remember me. I was one of them. And I got to tell you that all through those phases, I thought I was a pretty good person. And all through those phases, I bet people who I was taking care of would tell you that I helped them. So they're not bad people. They may be like me, they just never heard it. They may be like me, they heard it, but they've never done enough work on themselves to be able to stand for it. So there's a lot of in-betweenness here. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot, it's not so black and white, even though that's kind of the mindset we get in when we're freaked out, is everything is black and white and it becomes us against them. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help us, and it doesn't help them, and it doesn't help the situation. So let's remember something that Dickie Santo used to preach to us, just like me. You know, people are just like me on most levels. They're just like me. They want the same things in life. They have a lot of the same values. You know, they've had different influences. They've had different circumstances, but maybe if I had had those same influences and circumstances, I'd be just like them, right? So, and all of us want to feel safer in the world. All of us want to do the best thing for our families and for ourselves. All of us want a world with more love and peace and joy in it. All of us want that. You know, we're confused maybe about how to get that or how to have that, but let's remember that. Let's remember that at the core, they want everything that we want for them. And again, if they say no, or if they say we're crazy, next, you know, like I'm not gonna focus a lot on that. And I'm not gonna make it about me. You know, I'm gonna continually look at how I present things, because we can always improve at that, but I'm not gonna make it the first option when somebody rejects me that I did something wrong, because that doesn't help us move along that spectrum at all.
Yeah.
And I have to just share one more story about Sisyphus before I go.
Tell us. Yeah.
It's a complete shift of energy, but I have to tell you, he was a wonderful grandfather to my daughter. He was a beautiful person, and he really cared about people. This is not the story I was going to tell, but I was with him when he got the news by phone that the life board was thinking about letting Sid Williams go. And it was something they felt they had to do. And I've never seen him so despondent. He was in tears. And he looked at me and he said, "It's like firing your father." And so he really cared. He really felt things that, even though he would say it doesn't make any difference, he cared deeply. So one of the people he cared a lot about was my daughter. He just adopted my daughter, and he used to tell her things like, "Well, when you're 40, you can go on a double date with me." He was very protective. And until then, you have to wear a 3-piece bathing suit. I'm sorry. I just thought that was one of the funniest things I ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, I miss him. I miss him every single day, even though I always feel like he's still looking over my shoulder. And
I never met him, but he's certainly influenced my life, and I kind of feel like it was my first Chiro Europe when he died. So you got to imagine I'm a CA and I show up, and you know someone died, everyone's sad. Did they have a minute silence or something? There was something they had like a compilation of him speaking, but I don't know who the hell he is. And I remember looking around and being like, "Oh yeah, like he must have been a cool chiropractor. Like everybody seems sad." And I didn't really think anything more of it. And it was only years later when I built a friendship with Kerry and I was on the Sisyphus Weekly and started participating more in that community. And I look back and I'm like, that was a weird, I don't want to say like a passing of the torch, but it was a weird, that very specific junction of both of our lives, because it was like the end of his career and the start of mine, because that's the start of what put me on this path. I always thought there was something quite strange about that. I thought it was cool.
Well, obviously you are destined to be the next Sigafus.
I don't know about that. Don't put that on me, but let's see. I'm doing my best with my Zoom conversations so far. Well,
Of course, you won't be the next Sigafus because it's going to be hard to marry into the family at this point.
yeah, don't be the first, Jim. Don't be the next Jim Segafus. Be the first Zarak Bartley. You know.
There you go. There you go. He would have liked that a lot. Yeah, he would have liked that distinction. And yeah, there's only one Sigafus, but there's only one Zarak as well, for sure.
Just before I wrap up, I thought that with this is another thing I thought with the talk that I told you about earlier, is when I watch that, I can see that I'm doing impressions of people that I look up to, and I can tell you, okay, I got that from him, I got that from him, and it's almost as if Zarak's just doing an impression of XYZ. Whereas now I think if I was to film a talk, I'm like, that's me speaking. It's not me doing an impression of Jim Sigafus or Jordan Belfort or whoever the speaker is, you know.
Well, it's good to know you've been up to some good stuff in these 5 years you've been in school, besides going to school.
Yeah, the 50 grand didn't go to waste.
And I tell you, it gives me tremendous hope just to hear you say that, because I mean that's the kind of growth we're all looking for. I mean that's the kind of growth that Sigafus went through. So awesome into 5 years. And you're just going out and practice. Hey, don't let anybody or the world take that away from you, because he never did.
We haven't finished yet.
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. Let's do this again sometime, because we need it. You know.
I like the idea of doing it on the beach.
Yeah, we're gonna do that at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, we're gonna do it.
Beach will be there.
All right.
All right, my friend.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.
Bye.